to talk about the cases that everyone have been talking about for some time now, the Kyle Rittenhouse case and the Ahmaud Arbery case. Most of you have seen the verdicts, and I want everyone to tune in and comment this evening. So share where you're from, city and state. If you're watching from outside of this great nation, share where you're from, city and state. Country, region, province, however you refer to wherever it is that you live. But city and state if you live in the United States, and if you happen to live in one of the areas where one of these cases took place, let me know. So, as we saw, the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict came through. And now, of course, all of you know I like to take my time to look at the facts, look at the case, look at the evidence before coming out, going live and doing these videos. So those of you who know my background as a former law enforcement officer know that I try to stay right down the middle when it comes to this, because a lot of people are divided by how far right they are, how far left they are, and unfortunately that clouds their judgment and completely erodes their common sense when it comes to looking at cases like this. So when you look at the Kyle Rittenhouse case, I am going to personally share some of the things that I did not know about this case when I went into looking at the trial. So most of this came as a surprise to me and many of us around the country, because we were listening based on, our knowledge was only based on what the media was telling us. And the fact of the matter was, the media shares with us essentially what they want to share with us, and they don't share what they don't want us to know. So when I'm watching the trial and watching the defense and watching the prosecution, as many of you may have also experienced, we're really looking at this case and we're saying, wait a second, I didn't know that, or wait a second, I thought this. And it was not until there were witnesses testifying on the stand, putting facts out there, where everything we had heard for so long was automatically being dismissed. So I'm going to go through a few of them real quick, and then I'm going to ask the question. We've seen the riots, we've seen the protests, right? Some of the riots where there's, buildings on fire in the background, cars on fire, buildings exploding, things like that. And some news networks are saying they're mostly peaceful protests. So we're going to say protests for this. And I'm going to ask you your opinion in just about 1 minute on what you would think would happen if there were protests when this happened. And we're not going to say what it is, because I'm going to let you know what it is in a couple seconds. So here are some things I didn't know. And here's what I learned after the fact from the Kyle Rittenhouse case. So he apparently put out a dumpster fire that was rolling into a gas station and about to explode. Didn't know that. That was never disclosed. If you heard that, just throw the emoji with the hand up, the Simpsons hand. Throw that up. If you heard that, I didn't know that there was a dumpster that was on fire that was lit by the peaceful protesters and was being rolled into a gas station. I didn't know that the police were told to stand down as businesses were actively being destroyed. There was an order given to the police to stand down. I didn't know that. That all, once again, came out in the trial. Kyle's father, grandmother lived in Kenosha, 20 minutes away from where he actually lived with his mom in Illinois. So when they were talking about the state lines, I didn't know. I thought, like, this guy traveled across numerous states and drove hours with his mom with this illegal firearm, and his mom put him in the car. He said, "Mom, I want to go to these riots, and I want to, defend whatever." And he hopped in his car with his plate carrier and his AR-15, and Mom drove a few hours to drop him off at these riots. I had no idea he lived 20 minutes away. I think it was like 17 miles away. And it just so happened in that 20 minutes, 17 miles, you crossed over the state lines. I had no idea. I never mapped it out. But when they mapped it out during the trial, we all saw. So what we thought was cross state lines was he was like driving halfway across the country, driven across the country by his mom. I didn't know that. So I didn't know that he was knocked down twice and then someone attempted to kick him in the head. I guess someone tried to stomp him in the head. I thought he was knocked down, but I didn't know that part until once again I saw the trial. There was a man named Huber that hit him in the head, not once, but twice with the skateboard. I was told, or I heard through the media and the news, that there was someone with the skateboard and someone tried to swing the skateboard at him, but I didn't know that it was attempted to hit him in the head twice. The gentleman who had the handgun there, Grosskrautz, had an he was illegally possessing a handgun and actually pointed it at Kyle Rittenhouse's head illegally before Rittenhouse engaged with his weapon. And this guy admitted this on the stand. He admitted on the stand that he pointed his gun at Kyle first. I didn't know that. Everything I heard was Rittenhouse was the aggressor, if you would, in this. The instigator. I had no idea this came out in trial. I didn't know that it wasn't illegal for a 17-year-old to possess a firearm in Wisconsin, and that he came across state lines with the weapon actually never happened. I didn't know that. In the state of Wisconsin, it is legal for him to have a gun at age 17, and hence why they dropped the gun charge. When I heard they dropped the gun charge, I was really shocked because I was like, wait a second. That was the biggest thing, was he was 17, he was underage, and he wasn't allowed to possess the firearm he had, and that was the big thing that was all over the news. You guys know that. But when I found out that he dropped the gun charge, I looked into it, and then I saw all the evidence, and I saw, well, wait a second. Now, I don't know how the media put that out there. The media, they have all the assets and all the resources in the world. How they put this out there without doing 30 seconds of Google searching to find out that as a 17-year-old, he was allowed to legally carry that weapon in Kenosha. So I found that out. Hey, shame on me. I didn't even Google it. I heard it on the news, and I just took it as fact. I didn't know. It was, everyone was really talking about it. I don't want to say all the, liberal and conservative channels were talking about it. I just kind of heard it in general. It was just out there in the ether. So I just took it as truth. I was wrong. It was not true. I didn't know Kyle didn't cross state lines with a gun that he wasn't supposed to have, and the rightful owner did and was legally permitted to do so. So that came out in trial. Once again, it wasn't in the media, it wasn't in the news. The rightful owner of the gun is the one that crossed the state lines, and then Kyle legally possessed that in Kenosha. So I had no idea about any of this. This was like all news to me, and it all came out in trial. Once again, how did the media not know this? Did they know it, and did they not put it out with an intent to deceive us? I'm not sure. You guys be the judge of that. Rosenbaum, we all know the guy Rosenbaum, was a 5-time convicted child rapist, and Huber was a 2-time convicted abuser of women. And Grosskrautz was a convicted burglar with an assault on his record. Now, a lot of people are throwing that out there. I didn't know that the people that were the victims of Kyle Rittenhouse, the ones that lost their life, the one that was severely wounded, I didn't know they had all these crazy backgrounds. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you, does all that matter? I don't think any of that matters unless they should have been in prison. If they should have been in jail, yet they were out on the street burning Kenosha to the ground, that's a problem. That's a problem. Now, if these people did their horrific crimes and served their time, and then some, did their 20 years, 30 years, whatever their sentences should have been for these horrific crimes. I don't even know what the laws are and the punishments are where these crimes occurred, but 5-time convicted child rapist, why is that guy even out on the street? I don't know. I don't know. If you know, please comment below. Let me know. But I don't know how a 5-time convicted child rapist is on the streets of Wisconsin trying to harm people and trying to burn down a city. That's beyond me. If you happen to know the answer to that question, please let me know. I'd like to know. We don't like to know. So please comment. The person who was the woman beater and the burglar with the assault record, maybe they should have been in jail, maybe not. I have no idea. Now, a lot of people say, well, what does that matter? I will say this. A lot, and I said this with the George Floyd thing. A lot of people brought in George Floyd's record into the conversation. And the fact of the matter is, what happened to George Floyd, yeah, maybe his criminal past led him to be in that situation, that led him to be in an encounter with the police, that led him to be in that situation where he had the officer's knee on his neck. But that very well could have been George Floyd's first offense. And if that was his first offense and that happened to him, what would you be saying? You'd be saying nothing. You'd be saying nothing. So I will, in this situation, I didn't know this about these people. And I'm just going to say it from the standpoint of, I feel like it was very odd that for a year, we did not know the background and the horrific crimes that these men had committed, whether it relates to what happened to them or not, that I'll leave for someone else to judge. But the fact that no one even heard about these horrific things that these guys did, it was all kind of like compressed and pushed down in the media. Very, very disturbing, very troubling. Now, I don't know how most people feel, but a lot of people have asked me this question, and they said, should this have even gone to trial? Was this a case that even needed to go to trial? Because once you watched very easy for people to say after they watched the trial, it was very easy for people to come off the couch and say, this shouldn't have ever went to... Well, yeah, of course, it's very easy to say that after you see all the evidence come out, after you see all the video evidence from 100 different angles, video we'd never seen before, and then you found out all the details of what happened and charges being thrown out, and wait a second, the state lines was only 20 minutes away, the gun wasn't illegally being carried, it was perfectly legal, and then you saw the video of the attack, and then you're saying to yourself, wait a second, to me, now it's pretty clear why he was acquitted. It's clear as day, and it became clear as day to millions of other people who at first thought, this kid's going to jail. He shot a couple of people, and he had a gun that he shouldn't have had. He crossed state lines illegally without this gun. This kid's going to jail for life. And then you watch the trial, and you watch all the facts and the evidence come out, and then the same people, literally talk to the same people. I talked to the same people who said, this kid needs to go to jail for life, for murder. And after the trial, they're like, I don't even know how this case went to trial. And I agree with them. I see what they mean by their complete 180. I understand what they are saying when they said, I felt like this, and now I felt like this. So, it's not the COVID. It's not. If some of you feel that way, please comment below. I'd like to know. So anyway, what I'm like, and now of course we saw, we're going to move on to the Ahmaud Arbery case, where the three men, the father, the son, and the neighbor who videotaped the whole thing, was following behind videotaping the whole thing, all of them convicted. All of them convicted. But what you probably haven't heard is that the former prosecutor was also convicted of misconduct, because at first she was not looking to press charges against these men. And now she has been convicted, and she's probably going to be going to jail. So, little known fun fact that most people don't know, about that woman that she is most likely going to jail. This is a former prosecutor because of her failure to do her duty as a prosecutor. So, odd that story isn't getting more attention. I thought it would, but it's not. I don't know why it's not getting more media attention. Maybe some of you know. So, what we saw with these cases and a lot of other incidents last year throughout the summer, we saw the riots, we saw the burning, we saw the looting, right? And it was ugly, it was disgusting. It cost billions in damage. Buildings were on fire. They lit a police station on fire with officers inside of it. They burned down black-owned businesses. A church got burned down. An entire car dealership that apparently was owned by a black family was burned down. So I don't know how you see today, we're almost into December of 2021, and you see certain news networks not talking about any of the billions in damage, the dozens of black lives that were lost, white lives that were lost, lives in general that were lost. No one's talking about that. They're still talking about, and now this is a true story, they're still talking about for hours on end, January 6th. What happened on January 6th? What happened on January 6th was disgusting and horrific, and no one wants to see that in any first world country. That's not how we operate. However, to focus on that and put that at the level of 9/11, however, you don't look at the billions in damage, countless lives lost, countless businesses destroyed, countless lives destroyed. It was complete, absolute anarchy, mayhem. And no one is really even talking about that. No, let me not say really isn't talking about that. No one's talking about that anymore, period. So why is that? How is it, and this is a true story. The other day, for 2 hours, I was taking a long workout. I was in the gym. And in the gym, there was a TV with MSNBC, and the TV literally right next to it was Fox News. So for my 2-hour workout, a little warm up and then, workout and a little cool down. So I was there for a total just under 2 hours, okay? Probably about an hour and realistically an hour and 50 minutes. However, what I noticed was for that 2 hours, the MSNBC channel only talked about Trump and January 6th. That's it. They didn't talk about anything else for 2 hours. Okay, we're almost in December. It's coming on a year. The Fox News channel, the only thing they talked about was the current president and things that are going on with the economy and supply chain and his policies and COVID, but it was about things that are happening right now. And with the current administration, and on not only the current administration, but things that are happening in our world right now that matter. Gas prices, tankers, or, container ships off of the coastal California. All those things that we're all feeling right now, things that you can't get. Now they said there's a liquor shortage happening. Now people are waking up. The people who were kind of on the sidelines saying, wait a second, hold on. Now they're saying, wait, booze? Wait a second, booze is short? Wait a second. Now people are getting upset. So you ask yourself, how is it that we have such a disparity in our news reporting? Is it the news anymore? Is it simply their opinion and what each channel wants to speak about? Now, if you're going to speak about current events, which is current events, news, that's what we kind of thought the news was, what's happening right now in our world, not what happened 11 months ago. Although horrific things happened 11 months ago, guess what? Arguably, even more horrific and horrendous things happened prior to that, and no one's saying a word. Nobody's saying a word. So why is it that the one channel is solely focused on the one thing and the other channel is solely focused on something else? We don't know. That I'll leave to you. I'll leave to you. If you feel right now, today, November 2021, that in our country, for 2 hours on primetime news, the most important thing to talk about is a 3-hour event that occurred 10 months ago, where there was allegedly about $250,000 plus worth of damage. And you're completely ignoring what happened a few months prior, where there was billions in damage, dozens of lives lost, lives ruined, as if it never happened. I gotta really question what your true mental state and true motives are. And on top of it, if you are completely ignoring what's currently happening, the current suffering that Americans are dealing with right now, which is absolutely mental to completely ignore that. If you are ignoring that, and you're not even talking about it as if it's not even happening, because if you do talk about it, somehow you're a racist, you're a supremacist, you're all this stuff. It's mind-boggling. So now we're going to get to the point of the video. And I'm going to close on this, and I'm going to let you comment because I want to hear from you. Could you imagine for a moment if, just think about it, this is going to be crazy. This is going to be wild. But could you imagine if the protests and the riots that we saw last summer, 2020, if we saw that when young black men didn't graduate high school? I'm going to repeat that. And I know it's a little uncomfortable, but I'm going to say it again. Right now, last week checked, the high school graduation rate for black males is 59%, lowest among any demographic. 59%. And I believe it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Oregon or Washington State, one of those places, just eliminated the reading comprehension and math requirement to graduate high school, or greatly reduced it. So pretty much, if you can read, write, and do math at a 4th or 5th grade level, you can graduate high school. They just changed the threshold. So let's go back to the question. If there were protests, emotionally charged protests, maybe even some burning and some looting and some anger, every time a young black man didn't graduate high school, how would our country be? What would happen right now? Imagine, instead of an issue with the police, imagine now they were calling for the job of the principal, the superintendent. They were now protesting the Board of Education. What are they doing? How are all these young black men not graduating high school? Imagine if there were gatherings, protests, riots for every single, not killed by the police, armed, unarmed. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about a young black man who doesn't graduate high school. Where is the anger and the outrage when that happens? Where are the screams, the cries, the yelling, the marching? Where are the calls for the jobs of those who let that happen? Where are they? Now let me ask you, please comment. Comment if you've ever seen a protest for a child not graduating high school. Actually, I'm going to say comment if you've never seen one. If I could leave a comment right now, I would. I think there's a way I can. Because I've never seen one. Ever. So it begs the question, why? Why have we never seen that? If you've never seen a protest for a young black man not graduating high school, I want you to comment never. Comment never right now beneath this video. Why is that? Because we have to look at what is happening. Now, I was raised by a single mother. I didn't grow up wealthy. I grew up with my mom ruling with an iron fist. And education was number one. Number one. That was it. She knew education was the path to freedom. Right? So, graduating high school was priority one in life. Not sports, not friends, not homecoming, not prom, nothing. Hanging out at the mall, getting a new pair of Jordans, none of that took precedent. Graduating high school was number one. Getting to college. Getting to college. So let me ask, if you've never seen a protest for a young man of color that failed to graduate high school, why aren't we? Why haven't we? Here's what we do see. Young black man doesn't graduate high school. Of course, we see that the high school graduation rate is directly related to the rate of incarceration. So we have a young man of color not graduate high school and has a high likelihood of being incarcerated. He's incarcerated, gets out. Now can't get a job, has a little criminal record. So out of necessity, some might say, not making excuses, continues the life of crime. And the crime continues. Jail, bail, warrants, jail, bail, crime, warrants, jail. I've seen it. I saw it during my career as an officer. And these young men just get in this vicious cycle that's, I'll tell you, not easy to get out of, especially with our justice system. They'll easily get released, but then it's hard for them to get a job. No one's hiring, criminal record. And here's what happens. Ultimately, one of these interactions with the police is going to go bad. And we see it doesn't happen often. Thank God it doesn't happen often. But we see that a handful of times every year, it does go bad. Whether it's the fault of the officer or whether it's the fault of the young man that made a very poor decision to fight with the police, run from the police, what have you, it goes bad. In maybe 1% of these situations, you see it's an outright dirty cop, bad cop, George Floyd. Piece of garbage. Police officer. Shouldn't have even been a cop. But what did we do? What did we do to stop that person? What did we do where we let that person fall through the cracks and their life led to that? We're not doing anything left of the bang. We're not doing anything left of the bang. You guys can look up that term and look up who said it. What we're worried about is what happens after the bang, to the right of the bang. And what we do is the bang occurs, the incident, the traumatic incident, and then everyone decides to make their poster, you get their paper and go out and march and then break into stores and loot and then light stuff on fire come darkness and, break up the curb and throw stones and chunks of concrete. Because that young man had an encounter with the police, and on this 5th, 10th, or 20th encounter with the police, it went horribly wrong. Whether because of his actions, the police actions, whatever. It went wrong. Because the more times you find yourself involved with the police, guess what? Things don't go well. The more times you get arrested and the more time you end up with the police and you end up fighting with the police or not listening to the police. Things are eventually going to go wrong where you're going to get handcuffed, you're going to get beat up, you're going to get thrown in the back. Something bad's going to happen. So here's my advice. If the system's broke, avoid the system. If you don't avoid the system, knowing that the system is broke, well, then you're going to be in for it. You're going to be in for something. And it may not be good. No one ever talks about the millions, that's right, No one ever talks about the over 5 million arrests that police make every year involving young black men in which nothing happens. That's right. That's right. That's right. Millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of arrests happen every year of young black men who, when the police say you're under arrest, whether it's a white officer, black officer, Asian officer, Hispanic officer, it doesn't matter. When the police officer says to the young man of color, you're under arrest, the young man of color respectfully puts his hands behind his back and goes quietly in the police car. Happens millions of times a year. And no one ever says anything. We only hear about the 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 incidents where a young man decides to fight with the police, run from the police, there's an altercation, tries to take the taser, yada, yada, yada. We don't ever hear about the other millions, because if they told us about those, well, you know. So, now, let's go back to, what if? What if? What if we got involved at the catalyst point? What if we all, as a community, got involved? When we saw a young man of color about to not graduate high school, what if we all stepped in, showed up at the high school, showed up at the Board of Education meeting, showed up at the superintendent's office, showed up at the principal's office, showed up in the teacher's parking lot, and protested? Said, how did you let this happen? Is there some onus on the student? Of course there is. Is there some onus on the parents at home? Of course there is. It's not solely on the school and the administration. But when it comes to someone being shot by the police, or a negative interaction and a negative situation, everyone just is automatically blaming the police. No one's looking at the parents. No one ever looks at the parents. Everyone just automatically goes to the police. And that officer. And that chief. And that mayor. That's all anyone looks at. So why in this situation are we not looking at the people directly involved? Not the parents. Sure, we should. But the administrators, the teachers. The Board of Education. Aren't they there for the sake of the children? To make sure that they're getting a proper education? 59% black male high school graduation rate. That's atrocious. Imagine if there was protests and riots for that. If there was, I have a sneaking feeling that the protests and riots for young black men getting involved with police would probably go down to nothing. I'm just telling you what I feel. If you truly care about the lives of these young men, yet you are doing nothing until they fall into a life of crime, and that life of crime leads to multiple interactions with the police, and then those multiple interactions with the police ultimately ends in a traumatic incident in which they are hurt or lose their life, and that's the only time you speak up and you come out of the woodwork, come out of the bushes, come off the couch, and that's the only time you do it? You didn't come out for the failure to graduate high school. You didn't come out after the first time they got arrested. You didn't come out after the second time they got arrested. You didn't come out after the third time they got arrested. You didn't come out after the fourth time, the fifth time, the sixth time they got arrested. You didn't do anything. You did nothing. But when they fight with the police and get shot, you speak up. And you say, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. That's your time. That's when you say something. And that is a disgrace. And if you're one of those people, you should be ashamed. If you've never marched and you've never protested and you've never rioted for anything that happened left of that bang, you should be ashamed. And as they say today on social media, the young Thundercats, be better. That's what I say to the community. Be better. Because everyone knows people who are authentic and the people who are just full of, and it's becoming more and more clear. People are seeing it every day. You can't hide. Video, Facebook, Instagram, we see it all. We see the people who show up, where they show up, and when they show up. But we also see when they don't show up. And that speaks volumes above when they actually do show up. Think about that the next time you see a young man that is involved with the police, fights with the police, runs from the police. Maybe he gets shot. Maybe he gets beat up. Maybe he's bruised, battered. Maybe he's shot. God forbid, maybe he gets killed, which you never want to see. Ever, no matter the situation. Ask yourself, did I say, before you go make that sign, ask yourself, did I do a damn thing prior to this for this young man? And if the answer is no, you might want to take a seat. You want to sit back down before you go out that door. It's really easy to go and join the riots and break some windows and steal some shoes and steal some TVs and do all that nonsense. I guess what's really hard is to when you see a young man going down a path where you don't think he's going to even graduate high school, to speak up then, that's hard. Yeah, I guess that's real hard. I don't think it's that hard. But apparently it is. So just keep watching the news. And they'll just tell you how everything is fine right now in this country. And the only thing that we should be truly concerned about, costing you $150 to fill your tank, store shelves are empty, can't get stuff, inflation's through the roof, no one's working anywhere. They're going to tell you none of that's a problem. The biggest concern that we all have right now is something that happened for 3 hours 10 months ago. If that's what you believe, that's what you believe. Just think about that next time it happens. Comment below, let me know what else you want to hear about. Make sure you click the subscribe button that might be here or here. I'm not sure. Post-production team does that on the YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like, comment. If you don't like the video, I don't know if YouTube still has the dislike button, but hey, listen, that helps the algorithm too. So go ahead and smash that, whatever you want to do. Spread the word, share this video, and let me know what you want to talk about next time. Send your submissions in on the Facebook, on the gram, or right here on the comments.